Hi, it's Ms. Schleiss, and this week you guys are going to be learning about the 5 stages of grief. So we're going to look at them, and you need to be able to identify the stages of grief that a person might be going through because of a death or a big life change. So Elizabeth Kubler-Ross is the one who came up with these 5 stages of grief in a book that she wrote on death and dying. And it's important to note that these are 5 stages, but not that everybody does not go through them all in the same order, or even go into all 5 stages. So someone might be in denial, and then go to bargaining, and then go back to the anger stage, and then maybe be in depression and then acceptance. But ultimately, we want to go into this acceptance stage at the end. So the first stage is denial, and this is what is going to help you survive a loss in this stage. So the loss could be a death of a family or friend or loved one, or it could be a big life change, even something like a major injury that prevents you from being able to do something that you normally like to do, like play a sport, where you're going through that withdrawal of not being able to play that sport. So when we're in denial, we're in a state of shock and denial, and we go numb, and we don't think we can go on, and this is what's going to help you get through each day. So denial kind of helps us cope and make survival possible. It helps us to pace our feelings of grief so we're not overwhelmed by it all at one time. So eventually, you start to accept the reality of loss and start to ask questions, and you unknowingly begin the healing process. So you start to become stronger, and then the denial starts to fade. So while this is usually the first stage, again, not everybody goes through every stage in that same order. Alright, so then the next stage then would be anger. Anger is a necessary stage of the healing process, so you should be able to be okay with feeling angry, and the more you feel it, the more it will begin to dissipate and you will start to heal. So it is natural part of this healing process. Underneath your anger is pain, and so it's okay to feel this anger. You may feel anger sometimes at the person maybe that has died, or at somebody else, somebody in your family that has caused maybe this change, or sometimes even people feel angry at like a higher power, or like God, like why could he let this happen? Alright, so it is necessary, and usually the anger becomes a bridge over the sea, and you can then connect to it. It gives you something to hold on to. Alright, and then we might go into the bargaining stage, and it might seem like you're saying, things like, what if I did this, or maybe I will just do this, or please God, I will never be angry at my partner again if you just let them live, or what if I devote the rest of my life to making other people happy, and then I can wake up and realize this has all been a bad dream. So during this stage, we're trying to make deals and bargain just to get back what we used to have in our life, whether if that was that change or somebody that has left our life. We just want that back. Right, and then depression usually comes after bargaining. Again, not always. It's empty feelings. We have grief and we feel sadness, and this is okay. It's important to note that Depression, even though it feels like it might last forever, it doesn't. And that this is not a sign of a mental illness. It is normal to feel sadness and withdrawal after the loss of a loved one, or an illness or terminal illness is coming on. And even though you're feeling this and you're feeling like you're in the fog and sadness, it will get better. And again, this is normal and not a sign of mental illness. Alright, and so then finally you can see that this acceptance, this is kind of always the final stage. So while we don't have to go through them in this order, the ultimate goal is to end up in acceptance. And it might take different amounts of times for people to end up in acceptance. It could take weeks, months, or even a year or more for somebody to end up in acceptance. And acceptance is also confused with the notion of being all right or okay with what happened. This is not what it is. People don't usually ever feel okay or all right with losing someone, but this is just about accepting the reality that our loved one is physically gone, and recognizing this new reality is that permanent reality. So this is what's truly has happened. We're not in denial anymore, and we're not withdrawn anymore. We can move on with our life once we accept it, while we still are missing our loved one. Alright, so it's important that we recognize as a healthcare provider that our patients might be going through this, or their loved ones might be going through this, and even though healthcare providers might see loss on a more frequent basis than others, that they are not immune to it. They still go through a grief process as well, and that we must, all go through this and eventually kind of become the acceptance of it. So now you have a couple of assignments to do for these notes. I want you to go into the Microsoft Forms that was linked on Edsby on the 5 stages of grief and answer the questions to show what you have learned from this PowerPoint. I will also have a PDF where it's like a little reading of this kind of same stuff that you can go through if you need to still on these 5 stages of grief. And then tomorrow you'll have an assignment to identify these stages from a short story. So if you'd been in the classroom, we would have watched a movie where you are kind of picking out these stages of grief. But I don't have that to show you all over e-learning. So you are going to select one of these 3 short stories that are on YouTube. You can do more than one if you want, but you're only required to do one. And then within that, there's going to be at least 3 of these stages of grief. And again, if you want to do all of them, you're going to need to do more than one story. So within that, you're going to write the character and the book title. So the example here is from Freddie the Leaf, and he's showing acceptance. The example is he accepted he had to leave the tree when the wind takes him, and it didn't hurt at all. So eventually he accepted the fact that he had to leave, but that it was okay. So, and there will be other examples of the stages of the grief within that story, or you can select another one. And again, if you want to fill in all 5 stages, you can use more than one story, and I will give extra credit for that. So please let me know if you have any questions, and I will talk to you later. Bye.